Welcome to Unplugged Podcast, where Jesus is at the center of every conversation. Join us as we explore the teachings of Christ and the impact on mental health, spirituality, and everyday life. Discover how faith in Jesus can help provide hope, healing, and purpose in a world full of challenges. Subscribe now on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms to stay connected to the Unplugged community. Unplug from the world and plug into Jesus. Welcome to Unplugged, where we critically discuss the intersectionality between mental health, faith, and politics. I'm Jasmine Garrett, mental health enthusiast.
And I'm Dr. Kelley.
And we thank you for your time, mental health warriors. First, I want to give a shout out to all of the mental health professionals. Shout out to my therapist for keeping me on track this week.
Shout out.
Major shout out. We appreciate
what's your therapist's name?
My therapist's name is Michelle.
Michelle.
Yes.
You got a black therapist?
I got a black therapist,
Ooh,
y'all.
we like to talk. That's a whole
Won't
other episode.
Yes, it is. You got to get a black therapist, okay? I don't need to explain. I don't want to have to explain why I'm bleaching my walls this Sunday. I don't want to explain that. You need to either know or not know.
Amen.
That's what it is. But no, today we have a very loaded episode for you guys today. If you have not watched episode 1 and 2, this is where you understand how and why Pastor Kelley and I are in these seats fighting the good fight for mental health.
Amen.
We did a lot of being transparent in our past episodes, so hopefully the link to episodes 1 and 2 will be available underneath this one, and you'll be able to check that out and hear more of our stories. But today's episode is Saved and Sane.
What a title. Saved and Sane.
Saved and Sane.
Wow.
I know, it's going to be a little deep. It's going to be a little deep today, but I'm ready for it. You ready?
Yes.
All right. We're going to start off with what will become a regular occurrence moving forward with Unplugged series. And we're going to talk about our mental health moment of the week. Okay? And just in case you are curious, mental health warriors, of what a mental health moment is, it's a moment that you had where you had to take a minute and gather yourself and use all the tools and all of the Holy Spirit to make sure that you stayed in your right mind.
Wow.
And if you haven't had that moment this week, God bless you. Amen. And I pray it's not coming. But if you have, I think you can relate. So I'll start us off with our mental health moment.
Okay.
So I am a proud owner of a lovely 16-pound furry serial killer. I have a cat. His name is Polani. He's amazing. Polani.
Not
yes.
Pilates. Polani.
Polani.
Okay.
Yes, it's Hawaiian.
Okay.
Don't ask me how he got his name. It's the most unchristian story, and I will not be telling that on camera.
No? Okay.
But yes, that is his name. And so I've started to incorporate working out into my daily routine. I brought a vibration plate, and I've started, working out. And the time that I would typically spend, petting him and spending time with him, I'm now spending on this vibration plate in the morning. And I'm going to say about 4 days straight, I will wake up to see that he, first of all, when I get on the vibration plate, he would just sit there and stare at me, like just in my face. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. But at night when I would come home from work, I would notice that he would vomit on the vibration plate, on it, right? Whoa. So this is 4 days in a row. I'm like, okay, wow, Polani, you're being really petty. But all right. And then it was about Friday morning. He didn't vomit on the vibration plate. He vomited on the carpet. And I was like, okay, maybe you're not being petty. Maybe I actually need to take you to a vet. So, of course, I had to fight to get him in because it was last minute. But I fought. I fought for my little guy to get in there. And I was like, listen, we just need to know what's going on. He's fine outside of him just throwing up a lot. And maybe we just need to figure out, do a blood test. And they're like, oh, well, maybe he has pancreatitis. Oh, he does. He has pancreatitis. He's had it for years. So if it's that, you really don't have to charge. Pancreatitis. It is a swelling of the pancreas.
In a cat.
In a cat.
Okay. I got you.
Anytime. Yeah, this is good advice for anyone out there that has a cat and you're like, oh, I love my cat so much, I want to give him everything he wants. Give him the gravy, give him the fried chicken, girl. He about to have pancreatitis,
right?
And you ain't gonna like what that bill look like. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is, I went to the vet. I went to the vet and I said, he has pancreatitis. You don't have to do all the blood work and all the extra. You gotta charge me all that.
Right.
He has it. Just give him the medicine for it. And like, oh, ma'am, we gotta check for everything. But do you? Because we already know he has it. Right. And they're like, no, we can't let you leave here unless we check for everything. And I'm over here looking at her like, I was like, okay, so how much is checking for everything gonna cost? And she's like, oh, you love your little guy.
Oh, that's about half.
You love him, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure he's good. We got to do our job, so it's gonna be like $450. Excuse me?
Oh yeah, well he would have had pancreatitis at home.
So I'm over here looking at my little bank account. I'm like, Jesus.
Oh yeah, he would have been at home.
And she all up in my face. Well, you got to make sure he's okay.
That's
what
hilarious.
if it's something else? And I'm just like, Jesus, take the wheel. So, but no, I had to breathe. I had to take a little minute. I had to breathe, count from 10, and pull out my card. Still hurts, Pastor. I'm not okay. But I had to do what I had to do. So that was my mental health moment. I'm still financially recovering as well as mentally because it was a lot. But yeah, that was where I was at. What about you?
Well. I could give you one.
Okay.
It wasn't the cat, but it was the plumber.
Not
and
the
that
plumber.
was yesterday. So, but I ain't gonna get into that.
We need to know what happened with the plumber.
Well, it was just unnecessary. I mean, it was just a bill that was I wasn't looking forward to paying. But that wasn't a mental health thing. It wasn't.
Okay.
But it could have drove me crazy if I let it.
Easily.
Let me see. Well, I can't quite. I'm not gonna say there was nothing that triggered. I wasn't triggered.
Okay.
But I did wake up a couple days this week, not really feeling good, like 100%, like really, really like.
Okay.
When we talk about the gray, being in that gray area, and I worked through it, got some things done. But it was just, I knew I was in the throes of something. Couldn't quite know what it was or, where it come from. But, I live in a constant gray. So it's not really nothing new, but it probably was just a little deeper and wider this week.
Is it more lethargic or?
Oh yeah, it's more lethargic. Yeah, more lethargic.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with bipolar 2, 2 is the more depressive side. I don't really have manic episodes or anything, but it was, I wasn't feeling 100%. I think if on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest of the low, and 10, because when you go to the doctor, they give you that.
I'm very familiar.
So if I was in front of the doctor and I was doing that mental health test, from 1 being the lowest, 10 being, oh man, everything is perfect, I say maybe about 3 days this week I was at a 3.
Ooh, okay.
3, like -3.
Not the -3. Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, but I got out of it. I stuck to my routines. I worked out. I exercised. I took my medicine. I, did all of my stuff that I normally do. Prepare for my sermons. I did all the stuff I normally do. The routines. I didn't let anything knock me out of my routines, but it was still dragging. It was like I had to will myself to do those things. But I was happy that I did them.
Of course.
And I didn't give up. So.
Well, you're accomplished.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful part.
Amen.
Because an accomplishment in the face of adversity is beautiful.
Yes.
For sure. 100%. So now we're going to move on to our glimmer moment. And just in case you're curious, what the heck is a glimmer moment? Well, a glimmer moment would be the exact opposite of a trigger moment. So this would be a moment that actually made you happy in a circumstance that really was a highlight of your week. So I am curious. I'll let you start first. Was there a moment this week that particularly was special and happy for you?
There was a couple of them.
Okay.
You know, I'm kind of different though. You know,
Tell me more.
I can get happiness off of watching I can a funny meme or something that's just hilarious that just have you in stitches laughing. Mm-hmm. I've seen a few of those that really that was really hilarious. My wife said some nice things to me, but I really needed to hear it. That was like a glimmer moment.
She's like the most caring person though. She's like super, super caring.
That's what they say.
You're very blessed.
That's what they say.
I'm a little jealous. I don't get to spend as much time with her as you do. But whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe we'll spend time together. We'll see. I'll hold my breath.
Yeah. Aunt Sheila popped up on me. That was good. That's still considered this week.
You're not wrong.
Right.
That's beautiful.
So that was good. Well, actually, Sunday is the first day of the week, so I'm kicking my day off with a surprise. So my week off with a glimmer.
I think we will count it twice because it's so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last week, this week, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. My glimmer moment is far more simple. My significant other said some really nice things to me, so shout out to him. But I'm gonna keep it 100. So I'm from Chicago and I'm here in Houston, and there's a restaurant that sells Italian beef. Okay, if you're from Chicago, you know what an Italian beef is. Don't play with me. So anyway, I was trying to order it online and get it delivered, and I realized that there was no place for me to tell them that I don't just want it wet. I want it soaked. Okay, I want my Italian beef soaked. Yes, you don't know nothing about that. But anyway,
really
not only did I want it soaked, but I wanted them to put some melted mozzarella cheese on it, and there was no option for me to tell them communicate this, right? So I placed my order on Uber Eats, and I called the restaurant. I'm like, hey, I just placed an order, and I didn't see where I could add melted mozzarella cheese. I didn't see where I could, say that I want it real soaked. And she was like, okay, what's your name? And I said, Jasmine. And she said, yeah, Uber Eats doesn't have it on there. And I was like, yeah, I'll pay for it. I'll give you my card number. She's like, I'll do it for free for you. No problem. Because God is good. Okay? All the time. Did I have a melted mozzarella cheese with hot peppers soaked on my Italian beef? Yes, I did. And it was wonderful.
Wow.
I regret nothing. I regret absolutely nothing.
What a glimmer.
It was wonderful.
So in other words, with the glimmer, we can find hope and joy and things in some of the smallest things. If we're looking for them.
If you ain't even got to look.
Okay.
You ain't even got to look. It's there. It is there.
Amen.
God is good. But I think the point of us discussing these things is really processing and accepting both of these instances, whether it be a mental health moment or it be a glimmer moment. Accepting and processing both are valid and essential to your health, your mental health. So I appreciate having these types of discussions, and I think that they're somewhat relatable. And if you have a mental health moment or if you have a glimmer moment, take a little bit of time, assess, figure it out, see how it made you feel, learn something from it if possible. But I think that that's really good advice moving forward to keep yourself on the right track.
Amen.
So, in the vein of saved and sane, we wanted to talk a little bit more about mental health. And I guess I'll start by asking you a question, and I'll give my 2 cents. But how can you identify if your mental health is suffering and you need help? Like, what would you say are the common signs that something is just literally not right?
Well, for me, clutter. Like sometimes if my life will mimic what's going on the inside. So I'm typically a very organized person.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be clean, and I'm very particular about certain things. But if my side of the room is starting to get a little chaos, clothes start to pile up, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign.
Okay.
Also, for me, to be totally honest with you, like I said, when you deal with the degrees of the depression that I deal with, and for how long I've been dealing with it, so for years I lived in a constant depressive state, where some people have bouts, like they'll have a depression for 4 days and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Most people think that, they might get sad for something and then it's gone, and then maybe somewhere down the line it comes back. But my normalcy was the rare. Like, I'll have normal days, 2-3 days.
Yeah.
So when you're living like that and that's your normal, when it starts to get really bad that's when you start to notice it. So for me, a bad day, if I'm not doing all of my routines, if I'm not working out, taking my medicine, therapy, all those different types of things, suicidal ideation will start to increase.
Definitely.
Not the plotting, not the planning, not
just
the
the
doing it.
of it.
Yeah. Maybe things will be better off if I'm not here.
100%.
Maybe the pain will stop if I'm not around.
Yeah.
So that's for me. That's how I know when it's starting to get bad.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's almost too late. So clutter, that maybe some irritability. I'm a very easygoing guy.
Yeah.
And very loving and very approachable. People can come, but I can be very irritable. If I get irritable about first of all, it's a lot of stuff that get on my nerves already. And I'm already, and then when like I said, when you get older, things start to get on your nerves and filters start to go bad, things like that. So I got that already, so I ain't tripping on that. But little extra stuff will start getting on my nerves, and then it making me very irritable. I'm not snapping on nobody or nothing like that, but yeah, that can get on my nerves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I will say is, with suicidal ideation, it's a little tricky for us that are Christians, because for us within our faith, it's true. When we pass on, we won't be in pain anymore. We would be with our Father. So it's not like we're thinking something that isn't real or isn't true, or not, at least not according to our faith. The trick is, hello. Yeah. I'll speak more into it. The trick is, or not the trick, but the mission of our faith is to bring heavenly aspects to earth through our faith. That is the goal. So that doesn't mean that every day is going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go through pain, but it does mean that when you do go through it, you have a resource that is spiritual and eternal and reliable and filled with love. So I know that categorizes us, especially with our mental health professionals, that we do have suicidal ideation, but it's more so of a longing to just be one with our Father, and that's what every Christian wants, right? So if that's what it is, and all of us are suffering from the same suicidal ideation. And
the thing is, the longing to be with the Father is not error, is not wrong.
It's not.
The wrong thing is the premature.
Right. It's God's timing.
It's God's timing.
Not ours.
Not ours.
Right.
And that's where the devil likes to steal, kill, and destroy the destiny.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. Like the truth is you don't want to die. You just want the pain to stop.
Amen.
That's the truth.
Amen.
There's not a person that's suicidal who's just like, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited to die.
Oh man, once they do it, I bet they'd be like, man, I wish I could take it back. You know what? They do have those videos on different spaces, YouTube and different spaces, of people who survive those types of things.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, they're like, I wish I would have never done that, or whatever, so yeah.
Yeah. Was there an opportunity for you to make your life better versus this drastic choice? And I don't know if that's a question that everyone takes so seriously before they get to that point. And they should. They should. If they want a better quality of life, that's a question that deserves to be asked. I'll speak more towards general things that will happen that let you know that your mental health isn't where it needs to be, and you're on a path that's gonna get really dark. So, say for instance, you're dealing with some sort of trauma, some sort of traumatic event, and you don't know that you need help yet. you're just attempting to survive through it like any other person would. When you know that it's gotten out of hand, or one of the signs that it's gotten out of hand, is your sleep pattern will be affected. And when I say your sleep pattern will be affected, it's in a negative sense. You're either not able to sleep, you're not sleeping at all, which has consequences in itself with your body and your mind, or you're sleeping too much. And when I say sleeping too much, I am not attempting to invalidate people that work 72 hours and go to sleep for 16. That is not me attempting to invalidate your need for rest, your body's need for rest. What I'm saying is you are resting and you're not sleeping. You are physically in the bed. You've been in the bed for 21 hours and you are still thoroughly exhausted.
The Bible calls that weary.
You are weary. That you're not even getting the rest that you're attempting to attain. That is a negative change to your sleep pattern. And when I say that that's your first sign, it's the sign that starts bleeding into all of the other signs. Because without sleep, your brain and your body doesn't have the chance to recuperate from the day before. And it is a compounding effect. And eventually it will start affecting your mind and your decision makings, and your rationality will start to diminish. And that happens sooner rather than later. So, unfortunately, for the people that are having that scenario and they're like, okay, something's not right. Well, the first thing that they'll do is try and self-medicate. I don't need to talk to anybody. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to go and get help. I'm going to just take this, do this, and I'll be fine. I'll get back to where I'm trying to be.
A little nightcap here and there.
Something.
Take the edge off.
It's different for everybody what they'll try to self-medicate with. Right. I ain't gonna speak no words.
THC.
I
got you.
I ain't mad at it. But what I will say is that you'll likely try to self-medicate. And when self-medicating doesn't work and you still have that diminishing level of rationality, well, now you'll notice that your performance at whatever work it is that you do is beginning to suffer, right? And typically, you slip-ups at work, they happen. That's normal. But when you find yourself slipping and you can't get back up, you're not rebounding, you're not able to grasp it and correct. Well, now you're at risk of loss of employment. Okay? And let's be very clear. Just as I mentioned in our past episodes, the goal of depression is to convince you that you're not happy, you have never been happy, and you will never be happy again. The goal of mental illness is to make you a liability.
That's good.
It's the truth. The 100% of the time, it is going to make untreated mental illness will make you a liability. That's not an opinion. That's not a maybe.
That's an experience.
That is a not only a lived experience, but it's 100% factual.
That's right.
If you ask any mental health professional, that is the way it ends. How you become a liability, well, that varies, right? You might end up being homeless because you can't keep a job anymore, right? You may end up getting locked up because your rationality is gone and your behaviors have now made you a danger to society.
Yep.
You might end up taking your life because you feel suicide is the only way out. You're not rational enough to think of any other options. And I'm not speaking negatively on those that have considered suicide. What I am going to say is it's a sign that you're in pain and you've been in pain for too long and you don't know what your other options are to stop the pain.
That's a fact.
That's what the thoughts of suicide are. That's how you get there, right? So I will say beyond a shadow of a doubt, if we were to talk about these potential signs of losing yourself slowly, this is where you go and get help, right? Okay, your sleep's off, right? Your self-medication isn't working. Your employment is now in danger. This is where you have to reach out for help.
And like you said, all of those are the consequences of not getting help. And here's the thing, like you said, I didn't get a real diagnosis till I was like in my 30s. I got the information of what it possibly could have been in my 20s. But it took all of that time for me to do my own research and come to the point where I needed help in order to get a diagnosis.
Right.
Or just get a working framework so I could just know what it is. Because identifying the problem is 50% of it.
Easy.
And so if you don't know you have a problem, you can't get help in the first place. And there's a lot of us in our community, like where I come from, all of my brothers and sisters, I am convinced that not only is it the devil running rampant in our city, but it's unfixed, unaddressed mental illness that has permeated through generations.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a generational curse. There's a verse in the Bible that says, the father ate sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. In other words, the children's teeth are rotted based off of what the father. So if the father has some type of condition with mental illness and things like that, it increases the likelihood that that's probably somewhere down the line in the bloodline, and then people just, Uncle Teddy just crazy. He just like to drink.
Right.
Why? Well, let's think about it. Uncle Teddy was a star basketball player, star football player coming up. He was the homecoming, this and that. He was the city's best. The best kept secret. Everybody thought he was going to be the president of the United States. Soon as he graduates, a few years later, it go down the drain. And now when we see him, he's on the corner. He's drunk. He's drinking. He ain't left his mama's house, this and that.
100%.
Why is that?
Why isn't anybody asking that question? Like, why isn't there more people asking that question?
He never got the help. He never.
That's the problem. Again, it's designed, mental illness untreated is designed to make you a liability. 100% of the time. I come from two mentally ill parents, one of which it was a genius, the other was arguably a genius. We're talking about two people that had outstanding careers in front of them. My mother was going to be a doctor. My father was IT for the city of Chicago, working for Mayor Daley. So when I say that,
he plugged in. He was plugged in.
Right, but none of it makes you exempt from this level of experience with your mental health. If you don't take care of yourself, if you're not taking it seriously, if you're not asking yourself these questions, if you're not waking up in the morning and checking yourself in the mirror, you're at risk. You are not impenetrable to this. No matter your intellect, no matter your connections, and especially no matter your arrogance for not wanting to believe that something could be wrong with you.
Yep.
That's not realistic for anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if we were to talk through the consequences of not getting help, like I said, it's going to make you a liability. If you are on the street, well, now everyone's hopefully is going to try and help you. But we'll swing back around to that in a minute about our attitude towards people that are less fortunate on the streets. We'll swing back around to that. But you're not able to maintain your independence, right? And if you want a life that has the potential to make you the happiest, if you want to live your best life, preserving your independence is going to have to be paramount.
That is powerful.
If you can't preserve your own independence, how you going to get that life? You think somebody's going to hand it to you?
So what does that mean? Right. Preserving your independence, like for somebody who's watching, like, I know what you mean, but what does that mean?
So again, untreated mental illness, eventually it makes you a liability. You will end up not able to work, and now either your family or your friends are going to have to figure out how to support you. And likely they're having to figure this out because you're unwilling to go and get help yourself and help yourself literally. So you're going to become a liability to them. And there's the financial consequences of it, but trust me from experience several times over, the financial consequences are nothing in comparison to the mental and the emotional consequences that your family and friends will go through trying to figure out how to help you.
That's powerful.
It's the truth. So if you want independence, if you want to be able to wake up and go take a trip or go to a concert or get a puppy and go for a jog, if you want to be able to make these decisions on your own and do it on your own, you have to be able to make good decisions for yourself mentally. Because the minute that you stop and you start destroying yourself, your family and friends that actually love you and care for you, they're going to step in. And the autonomy that you had, the independence that you had to get up and do that
is eradicated.
Is gone.
Yep.
And I'll put it to you like this, because there's more out there than just the idea of mental illness and it dissipating. There's the people that try to self-medicate and did it wrong and made their mental health worse.
Yep.
Right?
So then we start getting into the crack and all that type of stuff. Yep.
Something happened. They didn't get help. They thought they could help themselves. They picked the wrong way to help themselves, and now everybody is in trouble.
Yep.
Right? But when we talk about that as a scenario, what I'm attempting to communicate is you have now either made yourself a liability to your friends and family, and say that you don't have friends or family. You're now about to be a liability to the state, because you're either going to get locked up or you're going to take your own life, which means you are both a liability of your friends and family and the state, because now we got to figure out what to do with the body. And I'm really tired of seeing specifically people that look like us doing car washes and fish fries trying to figure it out when they're grieving, when we could have just had focused conversations about helping.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally on the money, but that's the reason why we're having these conversations, or we will be having these conversations, because these are the things, that people want to hear. They want to hear the truth. You know what I'm saying? They don't want it sugar-coated. They want to hear it from people who look like them, sound like them, and going through the exact same thing, or has come out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mentioned before, one of the most popular routes with untreated mental illness is it leading to homelessness. If we're to look at, locked up versus suicide, the most popular route would be the homelessness. And we need to have a talk about how we are one of the richest countries, and we have a certain negative disposition to the people in this country that are less fortunate. We need to talk about it. We got to talk about it. I got to talk about it because I was a part of that demographic. So I have an intimate experience with understanding what that life is. And it's high time that we break down the demographics of what makes up our homeless demographic.
Yeah, I was part of that demographic as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you're never too good. Most people in the U.S. are about 2 paychecks away from having that same experience.
Well, I actually saw something online that said if you got $5,000 saved in your bank, that you are doing better than 85% of the world's population. If you got $5,000 in your bank just sitting there, you are doing 85% better than. I mean, you're doing better than 85% of the whole world.
I know a little bit about finance, and when he says in your bank, this is important, because somebody's going to hear that and be like, "Oh, I got $5,000 in my 401k." That's not your bank, honey.
Right.
That's not your bank. We're talking about liquid cash.
Yep. You can reach
cash
and grab
money.
It. Reach and grab it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So. Oof.
Yeah.
That's another podcast, is why the financial landscape of the U.S. is so tipsy-turvy. But we will save that for another.
Right.
We'll save that for another podcast. But what I will say is we do need to talk about the demographics, and I'm gonna break it down for you right now, because there's a lot of ignorance, and that ignorance has bred a lot of dismissiveness and even hatred, and neither is okay.
Yeah.
Neither is okay. Let's start with who makes up the bulk of the homeless demographic. And there's about 5-6 categories of who makes up this demographic of the people that are less fortunate on the street. But number one, and sadly number one, and that's why you're seeing this at the bottom of this podcast right now, it's our veterans, okay? And if we were to talk about our veterans, we do need to talk about how the bulk of these veterans that we're seeing on the street are actually Vietnam veterans. And they're older.
Had several wars since then.
Several.
Yeah.
But here's the sad, tragic story about how they ended up on the street, okay? Vietnam veterans came back to the U.S., and they found a population that was not pleased with what happened. And then they found themselves trying to get their benefits, okay? Back then, we didn't know a term for PTSD. There was no term as PTSD. This is a modern phenomenon of understanding how the human brain works and responds to extremely traumatic events. And because we didn't know what PTSD was, there was no benefit and there was no urgency surrounding what was happening to our soldiers mentally at that point. So they go and they try to get their benefits, and just like with anything with the government, where there was red tape. Our bureaucracy is limited. We don't have enough people processing at the amount of speed to cater to all the people that it needs to cater to. And if anybody is looking to try and get government benefits in any way, shape, or form, the experience that you're going to have is it's going to be delayed.
Yep.
You're likely going to be told no.
Denied.
Right. Mm-hmm. You're likely going to be told no, and they're not likely to even have all of the correct data, despite whether you submitted it or not.
So you stop. Yep.
And because that is the experience of what happens when we apply for benefits, so often what the average person will do is they will take that L. Oh, the answer was no. And they will keep going about their life.
Yep.
And
it
will be bad.
Which makes their life easy, which makes the bureaucratic folks' life easier because you said no.
Because you said no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to let you know a little secret. The normal operating procedure for government benefits is for it to automatically be the no the first time. That is actually very normal. If you ask a person that's applying for Social Security disability, they are 100% disabled. Their doctor said they're 100% disabled. They applied for Social Security disability. They were told no. Not because they weren't disabled, but just because that is the normal operating procedure in most government bureaucracies. Tell them no the first time. If they really want it, they better apply again. This was not something that was widely understood with our Vietnam vets. Not only was it not widely understood, they mentally didn't have the capacity to continue with the wherewithal to keep applying and applying for benefits. And even for the people that were approved for their benefits, which were slim, but even for the ones that were approved, it took so long to get them their benefits. By the time they received them, they were already on the streets.
Yep, and then at that point, that back pay stuff don't even matter.
It didn't even. Where you gonna send a check to?
So I know we're going to talk about the different different demographics that make up our homeless population. So you mean to tell me that if we look at it like a pie chart, the biggest piece of the pie of homeless is veterans?
Veterans.
More than runaways?
More than anybody else, it is veterans.
Wow.
That were untreated for their PTSD. They were our brave soldiers that went over there and protected our freedoms. For whatever war, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. I don't have a dog in that fight. You ain't got to agree with every war.
So let me ask you this then.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about PTSD, paraphrase it. What is PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Right.
Disorder.
I say post-traumatic slavery disorder, but go ahead. I got you.
He's not wrong. He's not incorrect.
So I mean, what does that mean? So that means that there was trauma that was going on.
Yes.
And after the trauma, after the trauma, that trauma still lingers and affects you.
It has the trauma that you experienced. And again, by the way, you can suffer from PTSD even if you were not a soldier. I have PTSD. But what it's attempting to express is you have a multitude of disorders. PTSD is not one single problem. PTSD is a multitude of problems. You're suffering from depression because of what happened. You are suffering from anxiety because of what happened. You may suffer from hallucinations because of what happened. You may suffer from actual sweats, like physical changes in your body because of what happened. You may have mental fog because of what happened. You may have memory loss because of what you might not literally even remember what happens per se, but your body remembers.
Man, look.
Right?
I put the remote control down and it's gone forever.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I walked into this room. What did I walk into this room for? What was it? I don't know.
So let me ask you this. So when that happens to you, what do you do to get back? Like, what do you do? When like say you walk in this room and you like, man, what did I come in here for? Mm-hmm. What do you do to get yourself back to what you was?
What do I remember?
What do you do?
Okay.
Like me, I count. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, absolutely not. You're gonna laugh, but I'm gonna walk back to the room that I came from and pray to the Holy Spirit that He reveals to me. Retrace my steps. I'm gonna retrace my steps and see if it leads me to where I was supposed to be going.
That ain't gonna work for me because I'm just gonna be further because I'm gonna forget why I went back into that room. No. So I got to. I have to count. I don't know where I got this from, but I'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I was like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K.
Wow.
But somehow I get back to it. I'll be like, oh, okay.
No.
That's weird. I know.
I mean, I'm gonna try counting now. I'm gonna see where I get.
Well, it works for me.
I don't know.
Sometimes.
I don't know. We gonna figure it out. I'll send you a text and let you know how it went. But yes, PTSD is a multitude of different mental illnesses, and we use one term to describe it.
Okay, so I guess because we're gonna get back to the demographics.
Right.
So a soldier, or that's been in combat or been in some type of war zone where there's a lot of trauma. You know, bombs,
absolutely,
bullets,
100%,
babies, the whole nine. So couple that with somebody like me who grew up where I grew up where it was a lot of violence till this day, murders, domestic violence, drugs,
right,
low self-esteem, all the list goes on and on. Could a person have post-traumatic disorder have been in that type of situation, or is it really, it's got to be really, really hardcore like you in a war zone? But that's a war zone because I remember on the corner of our street somebody that got killed and we saw the dead body going to school.
That is a war zone. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I probably had PTSD before I was homeless on the streets.
Okay.
But because I was homeless on the streets, it was even more reason for me to have PTSD. PTSD, again, it's in response to trauma. So depending on the severity of your trauma and how your brain responded to it, this is whether or not you have PTSD. You don't have to be a soldier. If you saw your best friend get murdered in front of you, which, let's be very clear, if you live on the south side of Chicago, if you live in Detroit, if you live in
or you
the
see
Ville,
your mom slapped around, or you couldn't do nothing around about it, or something like that, or whatever, anything like that.
Absolutely, you had no control as to,
or any other type of abuse you might have.
You might have gone through the abuse. You might have witnessed the abuse. Trauma. If your brain decided to respond to that in a particular way, you got PTSD.
Right.
That's where you are.
And you got people that grow up under those circumstances and think that everything's good.
100%. But most people will self-medicate, and they have no idea that that's what they're doing. Okay, you drink a fifth every day, but nothing's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Absolutely nothing's wrong. Nothing happened to you.
Fifth a day, something got to be wrong.
Nah, you're fine. You're living your best life.
You just got high tolerance, huh?
Something ain't right.
Lord,
something happened. You don't want to talk about it. Okay, but if you think that the answer is your fifth, I beg to differ. I'm like, again, and I'm not looking to condemn someone for doing.
No, we're not condemning.
No condemnation. All love. All I'm saying is if something is hurting,
why
don't we fix it?
Yeah.
Why don't we fix it? Because if you do the fifth, you're going to have to do a fifth again the next day, and next day, and next day, and there's consequences to it, right?
And those fifths add up.
They add up to your liver, and I'm concerned about that, okay? That's what I'm concerned about, right? So I have a rule. I have a very strict rule, especially as a Christian. If what you're doing only affects you and no one else, I will remain silent. I will remain silent. I will just pray for you.
Right.
Okay. However, if what you're doing has now hurt someone else, I no longer have the ability to pretend as if that's not a problem. It's now a problem. It now affected somebody else. It's beyond you. Whatever you say that you can handle it, you obviously can't because it hurt someone else. Now we have a problem. That's my rule.
Yeah. Actually, that goes beyond abuse because when you talk about drug abuse, it's when the most base term is when you abuse the drug, when you take the drug outside of what the doctors say take. You say take 2, you took 3. That's abuse. But when we start talking about your mental illness or your lack of taking care of your mental health starts affecting you, that's a form of abuse. But then when it starts impacting the caretakers or even those around
other
you,
people, then you drinking so much that you lost your job and now your significant other or your family has to pay the bills. Guess what? You just hurt somebody else.
Oh my God.
That's a problem.
Right.
Now we got to talk.
Right.
I can't ignore that.
Or your outburst.
You're out, right.
You went off on somebody.
You went off. You slapped somebody you shouldn't have slapped. That you slapped somebody else. Now we got a problem.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's where it is for me. So yes, our biggest demographic of those that are less fortunate, sadly, is our veterans. And that is a tragedy in itself because they put themselves in a position to be able to protect us. And when they came back, we are not doing a good job of protecting them. And we got to do better. But what I will say is when we're looking at the demographic as a whole, we have some very deep misconceptions about what makes up this demographic. And we treat them a certain type of way that is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. So I'm going to dig deeper into that. But I'll finish talking about what's making up this demographic. So we have our veterans, which is the largest part of the demographic. Next from veterans are actually runaways.
I was that.
Yeah, runaways. And they shouldn't be this high on the list, but they are. So here's the thing. When I say runaway, I'm speaking specifically towards minors. We don't know what happened in their household. But at some point in time, a person that was under the age of 18 looked at their situation that they were living in and decided, I'd literally rather be on the streets.
My God.
And that is a statement in itself. We don't have to know what happened in that household, but we know the result was so bad that we need to do something. Yep. We need to do something immediately. So these are children that are under the age of 18 that are on the streets. And when we talk about the idea of trafficking, when we talk about the idea of children being abused, when we talk about the idea of children being addicted to specific drugs, this is the opportunity for those to happen when the child is no longer in a protected home with parents that are able to protect them. These runaway children are on the streets, and sadly, we're not doing enough to be able to protect them.
Oh man, yeah, they're open to all types of not only influences but danger.
So much danger.
And I've been there. You know, matter of fact, me and a good friend of mine, Aunt Sheila's nephew Theron. I remember we was I don't know, we probably about 15 to 16. We me, him, and maybe two other guys. We had this great idea that we was about to run away. Ooh. We was gonna steal his mama car.
Oh no!
It was winter time.
Oh, this took a dramatic turn.
Oh yeah.
Not
and his mama don't play at all. Period. Oh. So I don't even know.
I bet you wish you stayed on the streets.
So right. So for some reason, something happened, and we were able to get that car. So we got my friend Arissa's mama car. Right. And we was gonna decide to run away. We would run away from our conditions or situations.
Oh wow.
Some of ours was more worse than others.
Right.
But we got the car. We hopped in. Now this woman trying to go to work and everything. It was wintertime. We done hopped in her car.
Oh Lord.
He done threw it in reverse, slammed it into a snowbank, and we stuck. We done got out the car. We done ran and left him.
You're such a good friend.
And guess what we did?
You're such a good
And we all ran to our houses. The places we wanted to escape, we all ran back home and let him deal with the fallout. It was crazy.
I mean, he may have some trauma. You might owe him a phone call.
Yeah, that was one of my first stints of trying to run away without a plan.
That. That's not it. So next in the demographic, the next largest population is the actual mental ill. Okay, I'm going to separate this from veterans because, again, veterans can have mental illness, but that's not synonymous. You can be mentally ill and not a veteran. You can be a veteran and not be mentally ill. So we're going to separate them. So let's talk about mental illness. All right, the average person, they have a break, they become a liability, or they just walk out of their house, leave it all, and they're now on the streets. This is their new life. This is what they're committed to. They don't have the capacity, the rationale to be able to reconcile and build a life for themselves that is sustainable and independent. Okay. But we also have to talk about the people that self-medicated themselves into mental illness. Okay. This is not a fun talk.
Wow.
But it happens. Mm-hmm. Okay. You had an emotional day. You decided that you were going to try something to feel better. And you didn't realize what you tried was laced with something else. Okay. Can we talk about the SHRM epidemic? Do you know what SHRM is? You don't know what SHRM is? Okay.
They got fentanyl now, but yeah.
They got fentanyl. They got SHRM. These are substances that have the capacity to break your mind. Everyone doesn't respond the same to the same type of drugs. That's why you have a doctor that gives you a specific prescription after he takes your blood pressure and he checks your blood and he checks how much you weigh to understand what specific drug has the best shot of responding well to your body. And even then they do follow-ups to see, hey, how's that drug affecting your body? Does it hurt? Are you itching? Are you throwing up? Talk to me, right? So there's a science behind what drugs you as a person should be taking to the nth degree, and they are doing a lot of guesswork on the front end, and then you realize the consequences later. Trust me, as a person that has had several negative effects to medication, I would know, okay? There's a science to them figuring out what drug works for you. So for you to be so bold to go and find a average Joe on the street to sell you something that's supposed to make you feel better.
But here's the thing, though, and so I don't want to get off topic.
Right.
But here's the thing. Mm-hmm. When you start getting help, we're talking about those who are without help right now. Right. This is the reason why they're on the street, because they're not getting the help that they need. Mm-hmm. But when you start getting help, and part of that help is medication, that medication might not be right. The first 3, 4, 5, 6 types of medications that you try, that they put you on, it might not work.
And that's not an excuse to not do anything about it.
It's definitely not an excuse. But I can
figure it out.
I can see how people say, you know what? She's subscribing me to these pills, but when I take these pills, it has this effect on me.
Right, right.
Man, I'd much rather go ahead and smoke this, what I've been smoking, because at least I'm chilled out, but I ain't got to deal with this and this. 100%. And it's a game. I mean, it's not a game, but it's something you got to go through until you get that right fit.
That's it. Okay. I'm really tired of everybody assuming that the answer is a one size fit all. It's not. No, your medication alone is not the answer. The self-medication that you're doing alone is not the answer. Sometimes just bothering your pastor via text message every night is not the answer. You are going to need to find a way to combine several things and build a life that supports your mental health. It may be a little bit of Western medicine. It may be a little bit of Eastern medicine. It may be a little extra spirituality. You might have to do a couple of affirmations in the mirror, but you're going to have to mix all these things together to support your mental health in a way that gives you your best shot at life.
There's no one fix.
There is one of these things are not going to be all that you need. If it was, you wouldn't have found yourself in a situation where you realized that you had a mental health illness.
You know that saying they say it takes a village to raise a child?
Yeah.
Well, that's the same approach that you got to take with your mental health healing.
Yeah.
It takes a community of things. You know, for me, it's working out, it's medication, it's therapy, it's accountability, it's talking about it, it's spirituality, it's all of these things.
All of this
make
stuff.
A gumbo that don't heal it, but makes it manageable. Makes it so I'm able to
gives you your independence.
My God,
your control.
Yep, there you go.
Now, again, if you're on a medication and you feel as if you are not in control because the consequences of the medication are so bad, these are conversations that you have with your psychiatrist. You say, hey, this medication isn't for me. You're going to have to do something else. Figure it out. And that is a conversation that I've had several times over. I have never been told, oh, well, we just can't do it. No, they figure it out 100% of the time. You say, hey, this isn't working. This is the side effect. It's not working for my life. They will figure out something else 100% of the time.
See, we going to keep going down this rabbit hole. and let's stay on track. But once again, when we start talking about that, they switch to medication, but it takes 6 to 8 weeks for that new medication to start working. So, you know,
right.
it's like, you know, so it's a constant battle.
Your commitment to your mental health has to be absolute.
Yes.
It is not I tried it, it didn't work. That is not a sufficient response to what's happening inside of your brain. You try and you try and you try and you try and you try again. And you keep trying. That is the whole point. The minute that you give up on yourself, you already lost, and you lost in a way that you cannot bounce back from. So don't give up on you. That's what it really is. And if you've already given up on you, understand that that's a sign of your mental illness. That's called depression. That is clinical depression.
So okay, so we got the Vietnam vets. We got the runaway minors. We got the mentally ill or the drug-induced mentally ill that make up the homeless.
We're not quite done with the demographic there. Mm-hmm. The next part of that demographic that make up the homeless is abused women.
Right. Abused women.
Abused women. These are women that left situations at their household that were abusive, and they are now on the streets trying to figure out their next step. So, again, I'm not going to limit the type of abuse that they experience. You cannot always see the abuse with the human eye that a woman has been through. So that's important for me to state before I start really
the psychological scars stay longer than the physical scars.
You ain't lying. I can't stress that
enough.
enough.
I could put some makeup over that little.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And especially if you're trying to escape the situation, and who knows what the scenario was. Maybe your significant other was powerful, and so the last thing you want to do is go to the cops that he owns, right? So you're going to cover up these scars, and you're going to try and figure out a way to truly escape. But yes, there's a whole demographic specifically of women that are escaping extremely violent situations, emotional, mental, or physical, right? Or all of the above. And then the smallest part of this demographic, the very tiniest of the entire population, are the scammers. Okay. So here's where we have a problem, right? Here's where we have a problem. Because the problem is the way that the average person in this country responds to someone less fortunate is you immediately assume that this person is trying to scam you when they are the smallest demographic.
Yeah.
And the problem that I have with it, especially if you're a Christian or you claim to be Christian, is if someone came up to you and asked you for your help, you doing the mental gymnastic to try and disqualify them from needing it, when your yes could have been the difference in between life and death for that person, I genuinely don't know how you sleep at night. You would rather assume that they are scamming you and continue about your day and just hope that was the right decision before you look Jesus in the face? For all you know, that was your test. Whether they actually needed the help or they were attempting to scam you is completely irrelevant as to what it says about your character as a person for you to ignore them or say no. So stop making it about them and what their intentions were, whether or not they needed the help. This is about you. If someone comes to you and asks for help and you have the ability to help them, why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And, you know, as also a place of maturity that you're at, that a lot of people have not achieved yet. You know, I often ask that question too. You know, me, I've born poor, but I've always been a giver. Mm-hmm. But there are people whose perception has been warped to think the worst first.
Oh,
or to think like, hey, they are to get me. Maybe because that's what was modeled. You know what? When you talk about scammers, there's somebody I know. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna say their name. Yeah. They older than me. I look up to them.
Right.
And they was telling me this story about, you know, they was going through some tough times. Mm-hmm. And this person, I mean, they get money or they know how to get money. You know what I'm saying? And they've always had money. And he was telling me, he was like, man, I was tempted to go grab me a sign and go get on the corner. I was like,
yeah.
Right? And so it threw me off because I'm like, well, that ain't nothing but pennies. And I said, what you going to do? I mean, that ain't number change.
No,
he said,
they make good money.
That's what he said. He broke it down to me in a way, like a scammer way. Like, man, look.
It's true.
He said, listen, depending on the corner you got and your sign and all of that, he like, man, you can get a few $100s a day. And he was talking about how he knew somebody who parked down the street and they would go fly their sign, and then they'll pack up their stuff, go and put their sign and stuff in the back of their trunk and go to their house.
100%.
So, yeah, we talking about scammers. Wow.
Well, okay, because I'm going to have an honest conversation. I'm not looking to brainwash you into thinking one way versus the other. If we were to talk about the homeless demographic and not talk about the fact that scammers exist, we would not be doing the conversation justice. Scammers exist. There is a chance every time somebody asks you for help that they could be a scammer. Is that enough reason to assume that they are and say no? No. The answer is no. Morally, no. Just because you have the ability to see and do a quick assessment in your head, again, if you're thinking, oh well, they look able-bodied, they could get a job. You don't know that. They could be a veteran suffering from PTSD, and they can't have a conversation for more than 5 minutes.
So let me ask you this question.
Right.
And let's talk, because you brought it up from the Christian standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. What if a person comes up to you and, you don't know if they're scamming or not, and they ask you for help? Do you still have the right to say no? Maybe your no isn't for the purpose of, because you're scamming, I'm not going to give you nothing because I know you're trying to pull something over me. But do somebody still have the right to say no?
Do you know okay, so my problem is that you don't know.
Right.
If you knew, of course I would not insist that you give to someone that you know for certain is scamming. My problem is 99.999% of the time, you don't know that they're scamming.
Right.
And you're assuming that they are, and you're justifying your no with the fact that you think that they are. This is a problem.
No.
I was a kid in the south side of Chicago, right? But there's so many scams that use children to get money that when I was on the streets with no shoes in Chicago winter asking for help, they assumed that there was somebody in the alley that was ready to take them for everything they got. Yep. And so they just kept walking, either ignored me or said no to my face. And I was just a kid. I was a 6-year-old kid, scared and on the streets. So I have to look society in the face at this point and ask, where are your morals at? And where's your moral responsibility to do better for those that are really struggling? Because if we were to support the ones that are doing the worst of us, it would elevate all of us.
Jesus referred to them as the least of these.
The least of these. Yep. But there's so much short-sightedness around the idea of elevating those that are less fortunate. No one's thinking it all the way through. You're thinking about the dollar in your pocket that may be going to a scam. But that dollar wasn't going to break you.
But then we start getting into, whose problem is it to solve? Is it the government, or is it individual, us, individual people? I mean, because it's running rampant. I don't know, when you came, did you see a person with their basket and stuff inside of the parking lot? Like it's like they laid out, like they making a house.
A little house, yeah. I'm very familiar with that. I used to have a car myself.
Oh, yeah.
So the answer to your question, and I think it's a funny question. It's a funny question because we are supposedly live in a democracy where we the people make up the government. So it's like, is it we the people or is the government? Well, technically, that's supposed to be one and the same, right? But the answer to your question is both. You as a person may only have the ability to give $1. And so if you can, you should. If you can't, don't. And I want to be very clear about this. There are some people where, somebody came and asked you for help and you literally don't have it. You're behind on your bills. You got $10 in your pocket and that's enough gas money to get you to work. I am not talking about you. I've been where you are. I am not talking about you. Let's be very clear.
Right,
that $10 in your pocket, put it in your gas, boo-boo. This ain't for you. This is not for you. But for the person that got that $5,000 in their bank account, this for you, boo. Yeah, you need to hear me. Take a cotton swab, clean out your ears. This is for you. Yeah, if you can, you should. If you can't, don't. Very simple. Amen. I promise it's not overly complicated. Amen. But to answer your question, you are your brother's keeper, whether it be our government or whether it be a person on the street. You as a person on the street, you give what you can if you can. You as a government ought to be ashamed of yourself.
You was one of them good Christian folks.
Ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Man, they gonna see you coming. They can see you coming a mile away. They can't wait.
I got a chip on my shoulder.
They can't wait. They can't wait till you pop up like, get her. She gonna give us some gold. She look like she gonna give us some.
Don't put me in front of Congress because I got some words. All right, and I might need saving after I say them. But I'm gonna keep it real.
So what are the most common objections to getting help?
Yeah. So speaking more on the preventative factor, right? How do we stop from getting to the place of homelessness or suicide or being locked up, right? Mm-hmm. I've had conversations with several of my loved ones in my life, and for someone that's been there, experienced mental illness, got help, still working out my own mental health on a daily basis. I'm familiar with the signs that you need help, and trying to have that conversation with somebody that you love is not easy, but they typically try to dismiss the conversation before it starts, right? Oh, I'll be fine. Really? You'll be fine? Okay. But currently you're not, and what is your plan to be fine? Enlighten me. Walk me through it. Because as a concerned person, I'm uncertain, and I feel like you're uncertain as well, and you're just saying that to stop the talk.
Oh, man, that's it. That's the code word. How you doing? Blessed?
Right.
Oh, you blessed. Okay.
Okay. What are those blessings? Tell me again.
Hey, all you got to do is have a follow-up question. That's it. That follow-up.
Let's talk about it.
I'm good, fine, blessed. Mm-hmm. You hit them with that follow-up. Well,
right.
How are you blessed? Or
right. What's
give me an example.
Your blessings?
Oh, Lord.
Mm-hmm. I see you bleeding from that gunshot wound. I just feel like you could talk to me a little bit more about these blessings you speak of. So, but yeah, the it'll be okay, or I'll be fine, or I'm good. That is the number one dismissive response. And to be fair, sometimes they are good. But 99.9% of the time, if you felt the need to bring the conversation to them, you weren't wrong, and they're not fine, and they're not good, and no, they don't want to talk about it, and this is not going to be fun for either of you. But that does not mean that you don't have to see the conversation through to the very best of your ability for both of you to hopefully be able to sleep that night. Okay? All right. Next, and this is even worse than the I'm fine shut down. This is way worse. It doesn't work. Oh, Jesus.
Yep.
Oh, it doesn't work for me.
Oh, man.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here in anybody's face and patronize such an important talk about mental health. You don't know if it works or not.
Right.
Okay?
You ain't even gave it a shot.
You haven't given it a shot. You're not even educated to know what it is, but you want to sit up in my face and tell me it doesn't work. How?
Because it don't work for me. It might work for you, but it don't work for me.
Right. It doesn't work for you. How do you know it doesn't work for you? Explain what's your rationale. Show me some facts. Show me a pie chart. What is your evidence to say it doesn't work for you? Did you try it to know that?
But here's the thing. It's a lifelong journey. It's a daily battle. You'll never arrive. It's not, so you can never say it works, like meaning you're completely healed. Yeah, it works to help you manage it. It works to help you, like you say, not be a liability or to have that independence. But it's not an end-all, be-all, you know.
I'm going to tell you, I've had friends that actually did go through counseling, therapy. And they'll come to me and they're like, oh, I think I'm better. I don't need therapy anymore. And then they stop going to therapy. And then I'm like, I feel like you might need to talk to your therapist. Like, I don't know if you were actually healed the way you thought that you were healed.
Yep.
I'm not trying to disrespect you or discredit you and where you are in life, but as a concerned, loving person, I'd say that you might just want to just reach out and say hi and see where the conversation goes with your therapist. Just see, right? They got the tools to be able to assess far better than I can. but I know when something's not right. And I've never seen somebody say, I'm done with therapy and I'm better now, actually be better now. I've never seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It might, but I ain't seen it.
But what about the ones that say, I'll be okay? One say, I don't work. The other one say, I'll be okay. I can handle it.
It's the same dismissiveness. It's the same. It's I'm good. I'm okay. It's the same dismissiveness. Now, I'll say the one that is probably the most frustrating for me is it's a ploy for money.
Oh.
That one is probably the most frustrating. Right?
I still think that. I'm not going to lie. I mean.
You still think it's a ploy for money?
Not across the board.
Okay.
But I feel like it's not affordable as it should be.
We going to talk about that.
That's what I mean.
First of all, I didn't know you was preaching today because bars. Okay.
Right.
We're gonna put a pin in that because I completely agree with you.
Right.
But to say that it's a ploy for money for somebody that still hasn't even tried it.
Oh yeah.
That's an argument from ignorance, right? You don't even know how much it costs.
Well, I'll give you an example. So,
right.
I think in the first episode I talked about how Carolyn helped me get help.
Right.
Much needed help, and we found this program that dealt with people who didn't have certain types of insurances, or didn't have that type of money.
Right.
It was like a program for people who didn't have much.
Right.
So I was able to get into that. And they didn't give medication. They just did coaching and therapy, talk. But she recommended that I go get help. And when I went, I was able to. They was like, okay, $100 a session. I was like, all right.
That's a lot of money.
I know it is, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. So when I went to the first one, I went, and then they was like, well, this initial one is $100, but every one after this is $200. And I wasn't able to afford it.
Of course not. Of course not.
And this was a psychiatrist. I know we're going to get there.
We're going to get there.
He was like, no.
We're going to get there.
Like, oh, no. And it took maybe like another year and a half for me to get some help after that. Because I thought all of them cost that much.
Of course. But this, it's almost the same thing as church hurt. When you go to church looking for help,
Lord
and
Jesus.
you get turned away, you get shunned.
This is my PTSD. See, this is when you starting to trigger me. Okay.
Oh, is this your new mental health moment? Did I give you one?
Right. Not that I've been not that I've been hurt by the church, but that
But in the same sense that there's church hurt, there is mental health hurt, where you actually reached out to a professional for help, and you were told that it costs more than what you have. They weren't available to be able to help you, or the type of help that you needed, they weren't able to give.
Yep.
And people, instead of having a rational assessment of that and figuring out what the next step is to still help themselves, they're so hurt that no, I've just been rejected at my most vulnerable, and I no longer have space for this anymore.
Man, because you so optimistic, like, man, maybe this is the cure, maybe this is the thing.
The bravery that it took for you to even get to the point of reaching out for help, and then not have it, not get it, be rejected,
or not be able. Yeah, you can't afford it. It's right there, and you can't
100%.
get it.
100%.
Yeah.
I had a. So when I first started therapy, I had a therapist, and I was going through the closing for my property, for my home, and I was late for a session, and I reached out to her, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, blah blah blah. She's like, oh well, you were too late, so I canceled the session. Ooh. And then she sent me this email with the bill for a no show, $200 and some odd when I'm trying to close on my home, and I had every dime I had was for my home.
Yep.
And I was like, is there any way that you could please maybe waive it or make a payment arrangement? Oh, I can't believe you thought that I wasn't supposed to get paid.
Oh, where you go?
Hold up. Wait a minute.
I don't want to bring race into this, but I'm gonna leave that alone. But once again, we're gonna have that discussion though.
But we need so much more from our mental health industry. Money should never get in the way of you helping someone. In the same way, when somebody strolls up into an ER because they need help, you're not allowed to let that person leave unless they are stable, regardless of whether they have insurance or not. We need to keep that same energy within the mental health space.
Amen.
It does not matter what insurance they have. It does not matter if they have enough money. It does not matter if they don't have a debit card or a credit card. if they have come to you in the middle of a mental crisis and they're telling you that they need help, what gives you the right as a person that has the ability to help them to tell them no based off of money? What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, we need help as a society. This is not working.
And this is the reason why it's an epidemic. This is the reason why it's spiraling out of control. This is because it's so many people getting turned away. There's so many people who need help and not getting the help at the time they need it because of these things.
Yeah.
Lack of availability,
yeah.
lack of affordability, all of those things. That's why one of the goals of the ministry is at some point we want to put mental health centers in the community.
Absolutely.
At the very least, people can come and get group therapy.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And or maybe get some type of pipeline or some type of medication, low cost medication or something like that. But yeah, this is great. This is great discussion.
100%. And we'll end soon. I just want to cover a couple more points about the people that are not getting help and their rationale as to why. So there's the people that think it's a ploy for money, and there's also the people that think that it's just mental tricks. And I've had focused conversations with people that are skeptical, and there's a point in time where you just have to inject an abundance of logic into the conversation. For someone that has been suicidal, and I've had a conversation with a friend's boyfriend that refused to do group therapy. Obviously, I won't say any names, but he's like, oh, it's just a ploy for money. It's just mental tricks. Like, blah blah blah. It's not worth it. I shouldn't have to do it, and it wouldn't matter if I did do it. Okay, no, my friend was in therapy herself, right? And so I said, so let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You don't think it actually works? And he was like, yeah, of course it doesn't work. I said, okay, so are you aware that your girlfriend is in therapy? And he said, yeah, I know she's in therapy. She's, paying for the mental tricks. Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you how it is that we know it works. We don't think it works. We know it works. Your girlfriend was suicidal. She tried to take her life several times. Okay. So do you know how we know it works? She's alive. Okay. She hasn't had to be rushed to the ER for taking her life, attempting to take her life again after she did multiple times. The reason why we know it works is because she's no longer suicidal.
Wow.
So there's no trick of that. So again, the way you know
it's
it
not
works.
Something you just grow out of in time, huh?
Right. No. Right. The way you know it works is you're going to see somebody about your brain and the behaviors that are stemming from it. So how you know it works is you don't have those behaviors anymore. There's no trick about it. If you were able to do it yourself, you would have. You can't. So you need to reach out to somebody that has the tools to adjust the behaviors that are occurring within your life that are negative and are hurting you. Either it worked or it didn't. There is no trick. There is no ploy for money. You paid for that type of service, and you reap the results of it. Okay? Now, if you don't have the money, that's a separate conversation, because quite frankly, you shouldn't need it, and we'll get to that in a minute. But to say that it is a trick or to say that it's a ploy, this is an argument from ignorance. You literally have no idea of the realm that you're attempting to comment on. How do I know that mental health treatment works? Okay, I was suicidal. I'm currently not. This is your answer. This is very simple.
Right.
And the reason why I'm not is because I decided to get help.
And here's the thing. Most people that come to those type of conclusions, it's not a conclusion that they came to upon themselves. It's something that they heard and they're parroting it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So the last point that we'll talk, and this is just us trying to make sure that we educate people on the difference between certain types of help. So another point that I've heard as to why someone didn't want to go and get help is, I don't want to be medicated. Okay. So this is a fundamental misunderstanding. Mental health treatment is a spectrum. You have counselors.
Yep.
You have therapists.
Yep.
You have psychiatrists.
Yep.
Okay. You have then you have psychotherapy, which is a whole different. That's over here. Regardless, you can go and see a counselor without going to see a therapist. You can go and see a therapist without going to see a psychiatrist. The only person that gives out medications is a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
A therapist cannot write you a prescription.
Yep. Neither can a psychologist.
Neither can a psychologist. None of these people. The only person that can write you a actual prescription is a psychiatrist. If you have not signed up to be treated by a psychiatrist, you are not getting medicated. Right?
Unless you go to the MD or somewhere.
Even then, they would send you to a psychiatrist.
Right.
They can't do that.
They're not supposed to.
They're not supposed. No, they're not supposed to. So for you to say that you don't want medication as a reason to not get help, you don't understand what help you need. You need to get an assessment. And in order to get an assessment, you can't go to a psychiatrist. You have to go to a therapist first, which has nothing to do with medicine. That is a conversation to assess what is going on inside of your brain. Now, do some people leave that conversation understanding that they need to go and talk to a psychiatrist because they have identified that there is a chemical imbalance in your brain that needs to be corrected through medication? That is what it means when you're talking to a psychiatrist. There is something medically going on in your body that needs to be corrected. Your brain is no longer producing endorphins. I'm sure we'll talk about this in our next podcast as to the consequences of your brain no longer producing endorphins.
Oh yeah, that's a vital organ. Like it's every organ in your body can get sick. You can get heart
your
disease,
immune system,
lungs,
your
everything,
your memory, your immune system. All of these can be compromised because the natural chemical that your brain produces is no longer being produced, and now you have to replace it by taking a medication. Okay, that's only one of the instances. There's other instances. There's bipolar. There's anxiety. But I'm talking about just depression, because depression is when your brain has stopped producing any type of endorphins, no matter what you do.
And then that's when you start doing different activities
to try to produce them.
That will produce that. It does produce, but just enough. And then you got to keep doing it over and over and over again
because you're not naturally producing it. So you're self-medicating to try and replicate it, and it won't be replicated that way. So that was a lot. I know this was a lot, guys. This is a heavy episode. We have so much more. To discuss, to dissect this, and I truly want us to be able to have these conversations to get to a different place. The Bible says, "My people suffer from a lack of knowledge." So we're bringing this to you. We're fighting the good fight with these words and these sentiments, and we're sharing them with the audience, and ultimately looking to build a community of mental health warriors that understand how important mental health is, that understand that there is a faith-based community that has a responsibility to you, that understands that there is a political community that has a responsibility to you. We can't sit here and act like that is not true. We need to hold these entities accountable. We need to hold our churches accountable. We need to hold our government accountable. And we need to hold each other accountable for what we can do within this space. So that being said, did you have any last thoughts before we close out this
No,
episode?
I think this was a great start to this discussion. I can't wait to see what we do the next episode as we continue to drive down the road of these very important topics and many more.
Yes. We will continue with part 2 of Saved and Sane next week. And we appreciate your time, mental health warriors. Thank you.
Holla.
Welcome to Unplugged Podcast, where Jesus is at the center of every conversation. Join us as we explore the teachings of Christ and the impact on mental health, spirituality, and everyday life. Discover how faith in Jesus can help provide hope, healing, and purpose in a world full of challenges. Subscribe now on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms to stay connected to the Unplugged community. Unplug from the world and plug into Jesus.